The urinary system is fairly straightforward. Its main job is going to be to regulate levels of various substances in the blood so that we can eventually get rid of excesses of those things and hold on to some stuff that we might need. For instance, we want to hold on to as much glucose as we possibly can. We should never find glucose in the urine because our body knows that we can use it for energy. So we want to hold on to as much of it as we can. Now, if something like glucose does show up in the urine, that tells us that there's actually a problem happening somewhere in our urinary system. Now, what we're looking at here is the abdominal region, particularly the abdominopelvic region, with most of the more anterior organs removed. So we have removed everything from the small intestine, large intestine, the stomach, all of that kind of fun stuff, the liver, gallbladder, all of that stuff has now been taken out of the way so that we can see these kidneys, as well as the rest of the urinary system. Now, here we've got our right and left kidneys. I do want you to notice that the right kidney sits a little bit lower in the abdominopelvic cavity than does the left. Now, we say that these are what we call retroperitoneal. This means that the kidneys themselves are actually positioned behind the peritoneum. So they're going to be kind of pulled way to the back and kind of shifted just right next to the actual bodies of the vertebrae themselves. And only the top portions of the kidneys are actually protected by the ribs much. That's why they are a little bit more vulnerable. If you've ever heard of a kidney punch or something like that, it's because someone was able to kind of reach around the back and punch an area of the torso that was not protected by the rib cage. Thus, you could actually impart a little bit of damage and pain to things like the kidneys. Now, we also know that the kidneys are going to have their little hats up here, their little beanies, the adrenal glands sitting on top of them. Then we have lots and lots of blood supply. We have the renal artery and the renal vein. Notice that the renal artery always sits a little higher than does the renal vein. And then we're going to have urine that is going to flow out of the kidneys, flow down through the ureters until eventually it will reach the urinary bladder. Also pay attention to the fact that the ureters enter the urinary bladder from behind. So this is an anterior view of the abdominopelvic cavity. So we are looking at it from the front, and notice that the ureters enter the urinary bladder from behind. So here we have the urinary bladder here. Now, this is basically just a smooth muscle bag that is going to be able to expand and fill with urine as it gets filled. This is basically kind of a storage place for urine until we are ready to eliminate it. And we eliminate that urine out through the urethra. Now, we're going to spend some time later on in other videos talking about how we do that and the reflexes and nerve signals and stuff involved. However, for general overview, we route blood through the kidneys, a lot of blood through the kidneys, so that we can clean out as much stuff from the kidneys that we don't need as we possibly can. Anything from like poisons to metabolic waste, which may be poisonous. Route that stuff, concentrate it into our urine, run that urine down through the ureters, store it in the urinary bladder until it's time to get rid of it through the urethra. Now, here we have a posterior view, so you can see that the 12th rib, which remember is one of our floating ribs, is kind of covering the kidneys a little bit, but still, once again, there is some kidney exposed underneath the rib cage. So notice that we're also kind of sitting right along the top of the L3 vertebra. Now, like I said before, we have a few things that are occurring here. We are trying to eliminate things like metabolic waste. We call it urine because one of the primary components in it is going to be urea. We're also trying to regulate salt levels, anything from sodiums, potassiums, calciums. There are other examples of salts, but those are the main three. That's because we need these to be at very specific levels in order for our nerves and muscle cells to function the way that they're supposed to. So we're going to try and keep these things in a fairly specific place. If any of these levels get too high, we will simply try and eliminate it through our urine. However, once we have eliminated it, if say we consume some of those, like our tissues consume some of those ions, we will need to retake some of those in through our diet. However, that is also one of the things that we're trying to do in our diet is replenish ion levels like this. Now, also importantly, we're trying to regulate acid-base balance. Okay, so we're trying to regulate the pH levels, particularly of the blood, but also if we're regulating it in the blood, that means we're also regulating it in outlying tissues. So we're trying to regulate how much or how many hydrogen ions and how many bicarbonate ions we are getting rid of. Because if we get rid of bicarbonate ions, we're getting rid of negative charges. That means we're going to be or a basic substance. So that means we're going to be making the urine more, or the blood more acidic. The opposite is true if we are eliminating excess acids, which means we're going to be making the blood more basic. Remember that we're trying to keep the blood constantly in a range of anywhere from 7.35 to 7.45 in pH. So just slightly basic in a very narrow range. One of the ways that we can regulate that very narrow range is here in the kidneys. Now, because our kidneys are filtering all of this blood and dealing with all of this blood, and they're also dealing with things like sodium levels, potassium levels, hydrogen ion levels, that means these are also a great place to regulate blood pressure. Keep in mind that we are filtering the blood, which means changes in the amount of blood that we are pushing into the filter could potentially change the amount of things that are coming out of the filter. So because of that, we can actually regulate this a little bit, but this also sends big signals to us to see if we need to regulate things like our blood pressure. So this gives our kidney a wonderful position to be able to do this. We're also going to be trying to use our kidneys to eliminate excess water. Or hold on to water based off of the things that we need. So not just regulating all of these ion levels, but also regulating the solvent, the water that's going to be involved. So because of that, it also makes sense that blood pressure is a big deal when it comes to the kidneys. And also that the kidneys are well positioned to take care of it. And we're going to have an entire video dedicated just to regulation of blood pressure. We're also going to be using this to eliminate things like alcohol, hormones, drugs, things that are biologically active. That means things that our body can use or do things with. Many of these are things that we may not want to do things with, but especially hormones and stuff like that. If we have too much of a particular hormone, we might want to try and eliminate it a little bit to try and bring these levels back down to normal, or just simply get rid of something entirely if we no longer need it. Now, it is also important here for functioning in the formation of calcitriol. This is going to be a very important hormone. Later on, we're going to spend a lot of time talking about it. We're also going to spend some time talking about erythropoietin. Now, erythropoietin, remember, was a hormone that is responsible for telling us to make additional red blood cells. We do this whenever we are responding to low oxygen environments. So if you decide that you're going to go hike mountains for a living or something like that, or that you wanted to go run a marathon, you're like, hey, I need to do some altitude training to try and get more blood or get more red blood cells in my blood. That's why you go to those places and do that high altitude training, because your body will see that there is a lower amount of oxygen. So you will produce additional red blood cells to try and make up for that. And this is all through the hormone erythropoietin. We also have the ability to start the process of gluconeogenesis. What this means is that we are basically going to take non-carbohydrate sources and turn them into carbohydrates like glucose for metabolism. This is because our brain requires sugars. Our brain requires glucose to work. So whenever we are not eating for a long period of time, so we're fasting for long periods of time, and we need to produce sugars just to make sure that our brain and other body parts are going to continue functioning, we will break down other molecules. We'll break down fats. We will break down proteins so that we can then turn those into carbohydrates that our body can use. So this is going to be important for making sure that we can maintain healthy blood glucose levels. And once again, because we are dealing with the blood here, and we have a lot of control over things that are coming into and out of the blood. Once again, the kidneys are really, really well positioned to help us do that.